Okay, today we're going to be looking at chapters 6 and 7. And starting with chapter 6, we're looking at wall construction. And chapter 7, we're looking at wall covering. Now, back to chapter 6. Chapter 6 is, as we mentioned, wall construction, discussing some of the information that's required in putting together a standard wall and basic information associated with that wall construction. In this chapter, you're going to be learning about stud spacing, plate, bottom plate, top plate information, whether or not you can have a single top plate or if a double top plate's required. Also, you'll need to be looking at information about wall components, basically studs, cripples, headers, top plates, double top plates, king studs, sills, and sole or bottom plates. This information is in the chapter and part of your handout as well. As you take a look at the information in this chapter, you also find out things that are required as part of a wall construction. Now, quite often for those of you maybe that have been out on a job and seen how a wall goes together, typically you build it on the ground and then you stand it up, and that's quite common. And the bottom plate will be continuous for as long as the material will take it, and then at some point you usually have a break in that material and continue on with an add-on material to continue the length. Now, that bottom plate does not require to be broke on a stud. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. And on the top side of that plate, or that wall, you're going to have a top plate or potentially a double top plate. And most of the construction that you see, because of the nature of the systems that we work with, you'll see double top plates. And a double top plate is typically a single plate that ties together the wall from the bottom through the studs up to the top plate. And typically that first top plate attaching to the studs will be broke on a stud so that you can have an attachment through the stud to two plates. And then the top plate that goes on top of that will usually bridge over that break. And depending on where your layouts fall, you'll find out that you'll have breaks in the top plate, the double top plate and the single top plate at different intervals. And the code allows that to occur, but only within a certain span or distance of each other. And as you go through the handout, you'll find there's a question that asks you about information, how far apart those breaks can be. Some of the other information that you'll be learning about here in Chapter 6 is, let's say you have a situation in which the plumber has to cut through the top plate or the bottom plate or through studs and framing members, and what's allowed and what's required as part of that wall structure. Now, depending if it's a bearing wall or non-bearing wall, exterior, etc., there's different conditions that exist to have to be taken care of if the plumber cuts into those particular members. So the one that I'm thinking about right now that I just want to point out is normally on a double top plate, quite often a plumber will have to cut a 3-inch hole for a vertical stack, and that's usually for a toilet drain, which requires a 3-inch line. And that stack, when it comes down through a wall section, if he cuts through those plate lines, he usually is going to cut a pretty big notch or cut through. And so the code requires that that has to be strapped with a metal strap to secure or fortify that particular cutout in the framing. So that's one of the things that you can be looking for as part of your assignment as you work into this chapter. Some of the other things that you'll need to learn about are material grades, what's allowed for the framing materials, and you'll find sections that talk about this information as well. Anytime you're building a wall, you also need to be aware that you're going to have components that are intersecting with that wall, whether it be a stair system. In a bathroom area, you might have a tub or a shower. If it's in a vaulted room, you might have vaulted ceiling area. And anytime that you have situations or conditions where you have a break in the wall system, you have to put what they call fire blocking. And the fire blocking basically goes in flat in the wall through the full depth and width of between the framing members, basically to protect the structure, such that if there was a fire or a condition in which a fire might start, that blocking would help prevent it from going up through the wall system and increasing the damage that could occur because of a fire. So that's a couple things that you might be looking at as part of this information. Also, what's required for headers. If it's a bearing wall, you're going to have different types of header conditions, framing member sizes, etc., span conditions. Also, there's some information about engineered headers, what we call a box header or box beam. And there's some information that talks about the box headers as well and what the advantages might be to that. Anytime you're putting together a wall system, you also need to know about what the code specifies for nailing requirements. Just as we've already learned in some of the previous chapters, anytime you're putting together a system, typically the code is going to spec nail size and quantity in conjunction with the requirements of the system that you're putting together. So that's another thing that you'll be reading about. Moving into Chapter 7, you'll find that we also have code-related information that's going to talk about the sheeting or the finished materials, the wall covering. Interior, quite typically, we're discussing usually drywall or drywall type materials. Taffy, no. Excuse me, that's my dog barking at the UPS guy. So interior, typically we're looking at drywall and drywall conditions and requirements for drywall, ceiling board, fire rated type board, different situations in which you can use drywall, and then also exterior sheeting and nailing requirements. Now here a few years ago, well, it's probably been a number of years ago, I'm getting older, the requirements for exterior nailing have become a little bit more looked at and verified, simply because of the concerns of different types of conditions, wind conditions, seismic conditions, different structural design requirements. And so nailing into any type of a structural component and structural wall system has to be identified, and the code takes the opportunity to do that. Anyway, as you go through these two chapters, chapter 6 and 7, you'll have the worksheets that will help you glean information, but I also hope that you will read through this information. Once again, the UPS guy. Taffy, go lay down. Go. Sorry about that. Anyway, hopefully you'll read through these two chapters and glean information that will help you as you continue your education and your studies, and to help you understand and to learn the building code as it's written. Have a great week, students, and we'll talk to you again next week.